I'm Dave Kaiser from CCX Media with a special update from the City of Brooklyn Center. Two special guests joining us, City Manager Curt Boganey and the Fire Chief Todd Berg. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm sure it has been a busy time for the city, as it has been for everyone, adjusting to the pandemic and some of the response necessary. So in the next couple of minutes, we want to spend a little time talking about some of the things residents can do and what things the city is doing. And Curt, let's start with you as far as the city operation. Emergency operation is a key part of a city operation right now. Give us a little idea of the structure of that organization or operation within the city during this time. Who all is involved and what does that look like?
Well, City Council adopted an emergency management plan and a specific pandemic section to the emergency operations plan, and that delegates to the city manager and to the emergency management operations officer the duties and responsibilities to implement that plan. We activated our emergency operations center about a month ago, and at that time we invited, and people included in that were all of the department directors were the main folks who were involved in the initial activation of that center. And again, under the plan, the emergency management operation officer and the city manager are the primary people responsible for carrying out the plan.
Very good. And Todd, let's talk a little bit about that plan. What does it look like on a day-to-day basis from an operational standpoint? And what are some tips as far as managing the transitions? This has not stayed the same, I would guess, for the last month. It has changed. Tell us a little bit about your point of view in the emergency operation.
So our plan within the city is we have daily virtual meetings like this one with the department heads and the city manager to keep each other abreast on what's going on, any changes, new information. It's more or less a virtual opening of the EOC and what we would take care of away from each other instead of directly in one room.
Understand. Let's talk a little bit about your staff and other within the city, firefighters, police. How are first responders staying safe during this time? What are some of the tips you're having to talk to your staff about?
So our staff, all first responder staff here in the city of Brooklyn Center are handling things a little differently, trying to limit our contact with doorway interviews instead of directly walking right into the room. Limiting contact a little bit. We all will wear PPE, personal protective equipment, and responding to virtually all calls for service from public safety, which may look a little goofy. Nowadays it doesn't look quite as goofy, but we're wearing glasses, masks, and gloves for all calls for service. And then one thing, we are working daily with North Memorial, our primary medical responder in the area, as far as to try and reduce redundancy of emergency response to some of the non-life-threatening calls, just to protect the responders and keep them healthy for the peak.
Curt, let's talk a little bit about residents here in the city. We've given them some information about what the city is doing, but let's turn the tables. How can the residents help? First, from a city standpoint, what are you telling residents from a city hall perspective of how they can help out?
Well, I think the most important thing is to observe the governor's order and to make sure that they're doing the social distancing, that they're wearing their masks, and when they're out in the public, keeping that distance between themselves and others. I think staying safe and staying healthy is probably the most important thing that residents can do. I'd say the second thing that they can do, if they can make purchases online and provide support to local businesses, who many are really hurting at this point in time, that would be awfully valuable as well in the city of Brooklyn Center. And the other thing is to just do the best that they can to stay informed. I'll get into this now. The city has a website, cityofbrooklyncenter.org. On that website, we have lots of current information that could be useful about services, about facts related to COVID-19 itself. sign up for Notify Me. That way they will be immediately informed when there are changes in city programs and city plans. Follow us on Facebook. There are virtual city council meetings are occurring, and they can participate in those meetings by going to our website. They can dial in. There's a phone number that'll be provided, or they can participate through our WebEx meeting. So those are a few things that residents can do.
Todd, same question for you. Are there things from a first responder or emergency preparedness standpoint that residents should think about? And I know one area has been when you're out in the parks to maybe stay away from some of that equipment. What other things are you telling people? And also, if people do have some type of an emergency, do they call 911? What is your direction as far as how they contact fire or police?
So, of course, if you have an emergency, 911, we're still police, fire, 911, ambulance service. We're all still 100% active in responding to calls for service. Really following from an emergency preparedness standpoint, following the governor's orders, and we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the models. What we're doing today is working, and it's reducing that curve and that peak, and buying time for the necessary beds to be available, ventilators to be available to help those that are in the most immediate need of help. We talk about some of the things like don't shake hands, virtual meetings, stuff like that. All that could become part of the new normal, and adjust to that, and be aware that when things start opening back up for business, it's not going to be 100% the very next day. I've heard the analogy of like a faucet. We want to get the economy back going, and we want to keep people safe, but it's going to be a trickle. It's not going to be a full open faucet getting everything back together, and nobody likes it.
Right.
And we need to have patience.
Very good. Final note, let's talk about how the city is responding. Curt, from as far as a city operations standpoint, who is in the city, who's not in the city, how do people go about regular city hall type of business in this time?
Thanks, Dave. I will say that this event has been very challenging, but at the same time, it's been very energizing, and the staff has been very creative in the way that they've responded to this particular situation. As indicated earlier, all of our emergency services have continued to be provided as they were before the pandemic. But other than those emergency services, we made a number of modifications. About 50% of our full-time staff now works almost exclusively from home. There's another 20% of our employees who are essentially furloughed. A lot of these employees are part-time employees at the liquor store, at the EVHC, some of our park maintenance employees and the like. But for the most part, but beyond that, all of the emergency employees continue to work pretty much as they were before. I mentioned our website earlier. I should also mention the fact that even though our employees are working from home, we have the capability of answering phone calls. So you can call the normal city phone number, and even though there's not someone sitting here at City Hall, there's someone sitting at home with the ability to pick that phone up and answer questions that people might have. We're delivering a lot more services online. We've done some things to expand our capabilities for taking permits. And the staff has been very creative in finding better new ways to continue to deliver service creatively. In our inspections department, for example, we're doing a lot of our inspections virtually. So the staff has been very adaptive to this current situation. The other thing, in addition to continuing services, we've also had to respond to the changing demands and the changing needs of the community. So as you know, we've been providing support to 3 food shelves. We've also been working with the school district in terms of trying to help them find ways to provide access to Wi-Fi and online services for students. We're working with nonprofits to help them, to help provide support to local businesses that are trying to navigate the rules and regulations of the federal and state programs. Difficult for a lot of small businesses, so we're working with nonprofits to provide technical assistance. We're even looking at creating some new programs to help some of these small businesses. And the last thing that we're doing is we're doing a lot of planning for what we think is going to be the new normal, at least for the next 18 months or so.
A lot going on, and gentlemen, thank you for your time today and bringing us up to date, and hopefully we can talk to both of you again, as again, this keeps changing from week to week, month to month, so we certainly will keep up to date with Brooklyn Center. And as Curt mentioned a couple times, cityofbrooklyn.org, the place to go if you want to find out more information and get the latest updates, also the city Facebook page. Todd, Curt, thank you very much for your time today. Have a great rest of the day, and we hope to talk to you again soon to keep residents up to date.
Thank you, Dave.
Learn more about The Connection at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.